Welcome, my friends, back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. First, thank you for all the comments and the feedback, subscriptions. I appreciate those. A lot of good comments, and I'm going to take one and actually kind of talk about it a little bit in this episode. But first, go ahead, please subscribe, like, comment, donate if you wish. All these things can help kind of move us ahead, trying to do different things, and I have some things planned over the next week or so, kind of focusing on some people in the media, maybe in the movie industry, music industry, and trying to kind of focus on some of their masculine aura so you can kind of see that. So I think I have people like Gandhi, John Wayne. We're going to look at Tupac. I know that Carl had that suggestion. I'm going to go ahead and kind of follow through with that. I'm still getting a little more information and watching some of his videos more to kind of look at his nonverbal communication. But I'll be able to kind of talk about those soon as well. This one comes from a great viewer, and his name is, and if I get the name wrong, please forgive me, but it's Irako. Irako. I probably messed it up, so once again I apologize, but thank you, a shout out to you. I appreciate the great comment. And his comment was really kind of talking about the whole idea of desire. Now, we had done a presentation on desire as far as desire goes when it came in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and talking about how important it is to have some desire within yourself to achieve goals. But there's a side of desire, and I think Irako points out really well, that almost like lust is not a good thing. You can get yourself in bad situations if you have desire that's not really very productive. And I think that's an important type of differentiation to kind of talk about here. So let's talk about desire. Is that good or bad, is the name of this one. So let's look at this and delve into this a little bit. The idea of desire, we all have some level of desire. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but as human beings, we are always moving from one spot to another. We have energy that moves and walks and moves. Now, whenever you're putting motivation with that, that is what I would call desire. It's a good question, because the question then really is, at what point does the desire become bad for you? So if you want to improve and be the best person you can be, you're going to have some level of desire to become the best person you can be, right? You're going to have some level of desire to, get yourself in shape physically. You're going to have some desire to be able to kind of learn materials and become the best you can be from that standpoint. And you're going to have a desire to be closer to God. And that desire, and maybe it's just a semantic thing here, but that desire and that want you have is something that, in my mind, is very productive. So when you have desire that you want to be close to God, and one of the reasons I'm doing this, type of thing with retention, is because I feel that it does move me close to God, and that's what I'm desiring to do. Now, when does it become bad? Because we did one on lust, which is bad, and we'll probably end up doing a series on the 10 Commandments pretty soon as well. But the idea then is desire, as Irako says, can turn into a negative thing. And I think Sofa's also had one, I can't remember, a few months back, made a comment about lust as well and desire. Desire and lust become bad when all of a sudden it takes you away from God. And I think that's what Irako's basically saying. So if you're not basically within God's plan for you, and how do you know if you're in God's plan? Well, this is where prayer, meditation, and kind of keeping your retention, keeping who you are in your essence, so that you can hear God more, hear the voice within you, you'll know if certain things are good or bad. The desire to have intercourse every night is a bad thing. The desire and lust to have every woman you see is a bad thing. Okay? The desire to overeat all the time is a bad thing. The desire to smoke all the time is not a good thing for you. The desire to gamble all the time is not a good thing for you. The desire to be on the phone all the time is not a good thing for you. The desire to be on the computer all day long is not a good thing for you. Okay? So you do get to the point where desire becomes negative. This is why life is always, in my opinion, a balance. This is why we talk about the Bible says we have all things in moderation. You cannot function and you would not do anything if you had no desire. You'd be sitting in the bed not doing anything. You have to have some level of strong desire even to retain. You want to become the best person you can become, so your desire is not to release your energy. You have to have some level of desire. But as Irako says correctly, there comes a point where that desire overruns you and becomes your God and your idol. And now you can't control that desire. This is why desire, those type of things it's a tricky thing, right? And when you look at desire, you have to kind of really sit down and think about, what do I really want? If you desire for money, okay, as Napoleon Hill is saying, there is a point where you can reach that money. The question is, do you use it as a tool, or do you fall in love with the money, or fall in love with the power? Well, then you create sin. Now you're in a danger situation, okay? On the other hand, God didn't want me to be poor either. And so you're not going to, just because you don't like money doesn't necessarily mean that's good either, because you're desiring not to have money. And so this is why this becomes a tricky type issue, because we all have desires. Now, how strong those are and how your ability to control them through the Lord, that will determine the course of action you take. You know, when I was younger, I had a desire, I wanted to have girlfriends and all kinds of stuff like that. I now realize that was pretty foolish back in those days, but that was someone I was 20 years old, and I had a different type of thought pattern, and I wasn't as close to that I needed to be. And so temptation feeds on those desires. And those desires then become stronger because you're, in a sense, trying to achieve something that you think is going to be better for you. And this is where we get brainwashed by the devil. It's like that Adam and Eve, the apple, right? We think the apple is to make a lot of money. We think the apple is going to bring us a lot of female attention and all these things. But there's a two-edged sword to that, right? And when you're on relapse, when you're on retention, you don't want to relapse. You have to kind of ignore all that attention, even though you like the attention. Unless you're looking for that one person, you're going to run into loads of problems. If you're desiring to have a harem of people around you, that's going to be a problem, because you're going to be more tempted than achieving the next goal. So it's always a two-edged sword, right? And the thing about it is, you have to sit down and kind of analyze and pray and keep praying that the decisions you're making are correct and within God's will for you. And that's something that takes time. But the more communication you have with the Lord, the more you're going to be able to figure out, is this desire good for me? Or is this a lustful desire that's only going to end up hurting me in the long run? And I think that's kind of the key question here. Because if you have lust in your eye, that's a sin. There's no doubt about that. All right. However, if you're trying to do the best to get and have a relationship with the Lord, and you're doing the best you can to give to other people, you're doing the best you can to become the best person you can become, In my mind, that's a desire that's a positive one. Because if you didn't have that, what would you be doing here? If you're not living your life for the Lord, or you're not living your life to help other people and to serve some purpose, you got to have a desire. So the question then becomes, is you have to serve someone. You're either serving the manna or the world, or you're serving God. And if you're serving God, then the decisions you make, like retention and those type of things, will be positive. And I found that out through all these days. 500, no, might be 11 days, or I'm sorry, what it was, my 15 days, 16 days, I can't remember what it, maybe it's 11. 511 days. And the whole idea, guys, is to say, okay, I am going to follow the Lord. And so some of the things that are happening are not as important any longer. It's not important to have a lot of cars, a lot of houses, a lot of women around to me any longer. And matter of fact, I'm more happier and successful because of that. I think on this plan, I have become a lot more simpler in my wants. I think Epictetus even said this, that the rich person is a person who goes from having a lot of wants to very few wants. And so they're able to save a lot of money because there's not a lot of wants out there unless they're investing something or putting some money into something that's going to grow later. Okay? So really when you look at this, guys, you're not looking at trying to desire something that's going to hurt you. Your desire is really to be the best person you can be. And that, I think, is a separate point. Then it makes a difference. If you are with the Lord and you are on your journey, on your plan, then I think your desire, your definition of desire, is a little different than what people get into if they're lost. And I know I was lost for periods of time in my life way before I was 50 years old. I was lost. I was lost by 18, 19 years old as well. And so I know how it feels to be lost and no purpose. And desires can grab you like that apple and turn your whole life around. Luckily, nothing happened to me from a serious standpoint all those years. I think God was actually protecting me. You know, I did bust my hand on a sign one time after drinking a lot of beers. But that was something that was, that happens when you're younger. We all go through these type of situations. But the idea, guys, is that you want to go ahead and say, okay, if I'm closer to God, then my level of desire is different than if I'm not. And that's going to be the key on your journey. When you're on your journey, the desires become less and less. And now your only desire really is to be with the Lord and to help the Lord. And all these other things you have are not as meaningful. And so you go from multiple desires down to one desire. So Irako, I think you did a great job. Great question. I appreciate that. I hope I gave a little bit of an answer from my perspective. And I think we'll probably talk about this one a little bit more as time goes on as well. Until next time, guys, battle on.